Hello, YouTube. It's me, John Avenger, once again, and welcome back to another review. This is a review for a request from one of my friends on StreamYard that usually goes to my chat and always talks to me, Johnny Jerry. And this is my full review now of the last of the Mission Impossible movies before we get to seven next year. Hopefully, that movie is worth the wait, and that is Mission Impossible 2. Yeah, I saw this movie about 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. I didn't see it when it first came out in the year 2000. I was too young for it. I mean, I didn't go to the theater that much by myself until like I was 18. So this one disappointed me because I'm like, yeah, after the first one was such a good Brian De Palma film, it introduced people to Ethan Hunt, in this franchise, played by Tom Cruise, was very young in 1996. I didn't see that one in the theater either when I was 11. But this one I skipped. But this one hits a little bit too close to home, especially after what's happened this year. This poster looks cool, but it's not the movie we got. Here, it's an action spy film, and I'm going to use action in quotation marks because if you thought the pacing in Wonder Woman 84 was a problem, this is even worse because this is an action movie, and this is not 2.5 hours. This movie's 2 hours and 3 minutes, but we'll get to that. Yeah, it follows Ethan Hunt as he's tasked by the Impossible Missions Forces (IMF), which is in all the other films, to find and destroy a dangerous biological weapon called Chimera from rogue IMF agent Sean Ambrose, who's played by Doug Ray Scott. He was supposed to be Wolverine, but he did this movie instead. And to be honest, it was the best choice. Wolverine with a Scottish accent would have been laughable anyway. Like, I'm Wolverine. And no, it would have been terrible. It would have sounded like Shrek. I think with Hugh Jackman, we were okay. With the help of a love interest, and again, I use that in quotation marks, Naya Nordoff Hall, Ambrose's ex-girlfriend, aka played by that stick in that block of wood, the worst actress in the franchise. Yeah, Vanessa Kirby just is a nothing character. She could have been cut out. This girl, Tandy Newton, is awful in this movie. She was so bad that even the Razzies gave her a nomination for a Razzie with how terrible her performance is. Now, are there good things about this movie? Yeah. Tom Cruise is always a reliable lead. John Woo knows how to shoot a freaking movie. I can actually see what's going on when the action is there. It's got a nice score. Hans Zimmer does a good score. I mean, he's the same guy that did the score for Nolan's trilogy and for Wonder Woman 84, so he deserves points for that. He's always a nice to listen to. The film has a budget. It's not low budget. It's a bigger budget than the first one. But why was this movie the biggest movie of 2000, the year 2000? The Grinch was better than this because at least The Grinch wasn't 2 hours. Um, the film was released worldwide May 24th, the year 2000. Remember when theaters were actually open? To a strong box office results, I know, but I didn't go see it. Grossing $546 million worldwide, becoming the highest grossing film of the year 2000 and the highest grossing film in the series for 11 years. That is until Ghost Protocol came out and was like, yeah, this is how you do a sequel right. You don't bore people to death. You give them more of what they're looking for. The film was followed by Mission Impossible 3, which I think is way better. That is at least better paced. Another good thing in the movie is the second half of the film. The action is fine. It's not as good as the first one, but at least it has something. But like I said, the first hour of this movie is freaking slow. That's the thing that I hate about this movie the most. The pacing is off. After you see Doug Ray Scott pretending to be Ethan in the beginning of the film in the plane, I am not bullshitting you. 69 minutes later, there's no action. 69 minutes later. Yeah, I say that like in SpongeBob. 3 hours later. 69 minutes. It takes them over an hour for something to happen. No, the car chase scene with Ethan and Tandy Newton's character, that doesn't count because it's just them racing. They're trying to make Ethan like James Bond. That's not what Ethan is. I did a podcast with my friends on all the Mission Impossible movies when Fallout came out in 2018, and we mentioned this. This movie's freaking boring. It's a good looking film. The opening is Tom Cruise on a mountain, and I'm like, that's how big his ego was at the time because he produced this movie. He was, like We get it, Tom Cruise. You have a big ego. Why is Ethan climbing a wall like he's Spider Man? And this is before Sam Raimi's movie, so I don't want to hear it. Ving Rhames is barely in the movie. He was a big part of the first film, and here he's like an extended cameo compared to the first movie. Brendan Gleeson, I don't even remember who he played in IMF. He was John C. McCloy. Richard Rockberg as Hugh Stamp. Is that the guy that's like? Yeah, he's the not Benji. He's some Australian guy that I don't even remember who he was. You also had freaking Dominic Purcell is in the movie as Ulrich. I don't remember him. He was in Legends of Tomorrow. And also you have Anthony Hopkins as Mission Commander Swanbeck. Why does Anthony Hopkins have an American accent? He's not American. He's from Wales. He talks like this and everything. And I'm like, he's a good actor. Just why is he in this movie? John Voight had way more screen time than the first one. And the Rotten Tomato score, yeah, this is way worse. 57%. Wonder Woman 84 got a 65. At least it passed. This movie it's dull, so freaking dull. The Nostalgia Critic reviewed this movie and said, yeah, it's got some action, but it's slow and it doesn't have enough Mission Impossible. You see Cruise on a mountain. After that, there's the plane scene. He doesn't do much. He's just traveling from place to place looking for a girl to bang. Again, this is not James Bond. A year before this, he had The World Is Not Enough, and while that's flawed, it's a movie for its time. This movie is not James Bond. Ethan is not a playboy swinging, long haired, freaking man that goes flirting around with every woman. Yeah, he does marry Michelle Monaghan in the third movie, but it made sense because he was going to put the spy life behind him and move on with his life. So that I can commend J.J. Abrams for at least going in a new direction and not remaking the first movie. Here, Wu was just the slow mo. I think is awful in the film. You thought Zack Snyder's slow mo was bad in the films he did. Yeah, this is way worse because it's them jerking themselves off. Like, look at Cruise on a motorcycle. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. And I'm like, no, this is just too much. And I'm fine with crazy shit. I mean, I love the other Mission Impossible sequels. If you see my channel, I did a commentary for 3 of them this year by myself. Well, mostly. I did Ghost Protocol by myself and half of Rogue Nation. And I love Rebecca Ferguson in that. Compared to Tandy Newton, yeah, at least she's not useless. And Fallout was great. I love that movie, except for Vanessa Kirby. She could easily be cut out. This, I was bored out of my mind after that airplane scene. The villain is lame, and Tandy Newton can't act, and her and Ethan have banging, and they just met, and they have all the chemistry of oil and peanut butter, and it just doesn't work. It just feels out of place in a Mission Impossible movie. The consensus, and I quote, your cranium may crave more substance, but your eyes will feast on the amazing action sequences. Yeah, about an hour and 20 minutes into the movie. That's the problem with movies nowadays. You cannot have the pacing of a snail. You have to be fast paced. I don't care if you're a drama, be fast paced. Joker was 2 hours long, just like this movie, but I was never bored. Hell, the first scene you see Joker, Arthur, he's flipping a sign and then he runs and then they hit him in the face. Again, that's something happening. That's not him standing there talking and waiting to put on the makeup. No, it's something happening. This movie, I was just bored out of my mind. And like I said, the critics were very, look at this thing. It says a vaguely absurd thriller filled with elaborate, superfluous setups and shamelessly stale James Bond ripoffs. Thank you. That's what this feels like. It feels like The World Is Not Enough 2.0, and this is before Die Another Day came out. In a retrospective commentary in 2012, Brad Brevet noted that the film had significant similarities to Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious. Again, Hitchcock movies are not action films. They're mostly like thrillers or psychological dramas, which work because Hitchcock knew what he was doing. It was nominated for 2 Razzies, which, trust me, it deserved it. Because this movie, this is the only one in the franchise I don't own because I disowned it. It doesn't feel like a Mission Impossible movie. Night and Day, that feels more like a Mission Impossible 2, if you ask me, because it doesn't do the same mistakes and it knows better pacing. It got worst remake or sequel and worst supporting actress. It was nominated for Stinker Award of the year 2000 for worst song. Limp Bizkit's Take a Look Around. Eh. A comedy short titled Mission Impossible was shown during the 2000 MTV Movie Awards. It's a mockumentary of the stunts. Yeah, again, this movie it deserved better. Like I said, the whole unleashing a virus super weapon feels a little bit like this year, and I'm like, the year 2000 at least was better than this year. I can easily say it, but this movie just did not need to be like this. It's boring. I was bored out of my mind. And the fact that the movie took this long to get made, 4 years later, and it wasn't worth the wait. The 6 year wait from two to three was way more worth it because the franchise got time to breathe. There was another two Bond movies that came out. You had Die Another Day came out in 2002, and then you had Casino Royale, which also rebooted the franchise, and that worked. As much as it's long, at least it worked. This, yeah, it's stale. Like the action is well done, but again, it's you can see the action scenes on YouTube. It's basically like 20 minutes of the 2 hour running time. The beginning and at the end when Cruz is like spinning like the Tasmanian devil and then there's another reveal that the doves. Why are the doves in this movie? Oh yeah, because it's a John Woo thing. Because he did that in Face Off. Again, because a better movie. Because that movie is crazy and over the top and at least knew what it was. And Tandy Newton, I'm sorry, I didn't watch the Bond movies to see. I mean, I don't watch the Bond movies or these films to see British chicks. It's just not for me, guys. You know my taste. You know exactly what kind of women I want to. I want to just put my face around. This isn't one of them. This actress is so boring. She sucked in Solo. She sucked in 2012. I didn't like her in Guy Ritchie's Rock and Rolla. She's just a very boring actress. It's like if you took Zoe Saldana and Catherine Zeta-Jones, put them in a blender, and gave her a freaking an accent that like Emily Blunt, and there you go. It's a terrible performance. Like she has no chemistry with Cruz or with Doug Ray Scott, and the cat, the rest of the cast is trying. It's just I don't care about it. There's also a cameo by this guy Rade Serbezija. He was the main villain in the Mighty Joe Young remake. That's what I remember him for. He's from New Zealand, I believe. Hold on, I think he is. Surname spells this. He's a Croatian actor, but close enough. Not a bad actor, but he's just wasted in the movie, and he can do better than this. Yes, he says Swan Specs tasks Ethan with recovering the virus and its cure, hintity hint hint, and has his recruit Naya, a professional thief. Yeah, professional thief, my ass. She just barely steals anything in the movie. And also the chase scene with the car was dumb. Naya was recruited as a part of the team to trace Ambrose and his team since she is Ambrose's ex-girlfriend. Yeah. And even at the end, the fight at the end with these two, where it's slow mo, John Woo's trying to make this into like a martial arts epic, it fails because I'm not invested. I was like, just end this already, guys, please. And like I said, this is a time where Cruz's ego got in the way of a lot of his projects, and this is before he was jumping on the couch when he did three. But three is fun. Philip Seymour Hoffman's a more memorable villain. The film is way better paced. Tom Cruise running. Does he run in this movie? I don't even remember. Does Short as Hell doesn't run as much as in the second one, or in the first one, or in any of the other sequels. Fallout, he broke his ankle to entertain people. This one, the crazy stunts are just not there compared to the first one and 3 through 6. This film is the black sheep of the franchise because it just feels like it doesn't feel like a Mission Impossible movie. I was just dumb. I was dumbfounded how boring it was. And you could have easily cut out the running time could have been an hour and 40 minutes. 20 minutes of this movie is just way too long. The pacing goes at a snail's pace. I don't like the lead girl. The villain is just kind of lame. The twist and turns don't work in this movie. When Douglas Scott rips the mask off and it's him and not Ethan, I'm like, of course it wasn't Ethan. Why is Tom Cruise so tan? And then there's another scene where Cruz pretends that Ethan, gets himself out of a jam where they shoot him, and then he falls, and then they rip his mask. And I swear he does a Kylo Ren. He doesn't go. He goes. Ah! And I'm like, oh my god, this is a disappointment compared to the first one. Yeah, he rips the mask up, and it's some just random guy, and he goes, ah! And I'm like, no. I don't care if the villain is a foreign actor because several of the villains were foreign, like Sean Harris in 4 and 5 and 6, and Henry Cavill in Fallout, and even in Ghost Protocol. That was one of my biggest problems with Ghost Protocol. It was a little bit too long because of the villain. I thought the villain was just kind of weak. It wasn't threatening in the slightest. He was the guy from the first John Wick. He could have been in the movie more instead of just in speeches, on the TV. This you got to give me more, guys. I'm a guy that you need to grab my attention within the first 5 minutes. Here, it was just like, okay, plain scene. They did this in The Dark Knight Rises, but that movie, as long as that movie was, it still had better pacing for the most part. There were some scenes where it dragged, but it's a Nolan movie. What do you expect? Here, there's no excuse. This was 20 years ago. I was bored. Even when I was 15, I would have thought this was boring. I'm like, you got to pick up the pace. Stop making sequels that are slow paced. Directors, we don't need that. Who wrote this movie, too? Robert Towne wrote the screenplay. Yeah, it wasn't really that good of a screenplay. I thought the first one was better. He did Chinatown. That's a drama. That's not an action movie. He's not a terrible writer. It's just that this was not the right task for him. He also did credit as an actor, credit as a writer. He also did The Godfather, again, an uncredited thing. That is not an action movie. Reds, not an action movie. Not the Red movie with Bruce Willis, just Reds. The Firm, Crimson Tide. Yeah, you could have gotten a better writer. The Story, Ronald D. Moore. This guy did a bunch of Star Trek episodes of The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. What the hell does that have to do with a Mission Impossible movie? These movies are not sci-fi movies. Brandon Braga. I never even heard of him. Again, he also did Star Trek. Last time I checked, Mission Impossible and Star Trek are complete opposites. That's in space where it belongs, or in different planets. This is a movie entirely in a freaking like not even in one location, in several locations. The locations are nice to look at, but it's boring. That is not what I paid for. And I rented this movie. I didn't buy it. And 24 episodes of Terra Nova, yeah, Salem to Orville. You got to have better pacing than this. I'm sorry. Sometimes I don't know what these writers are thinking. They're like, we got to make these sequels bigger and more bombastic. You also have to have a fluid. You also have to have a fluid pacing, much more action, and not drag the movie out for 2 hours. You got to give every minute count. And yeah, the movie's it's dull. I can't believe that this is part of the franchise. Yeah, Wu uses two common elements in the movie and Face Off. Pigeons in the scene because symbolism, which I'm sick of that shit, by the way. And the final battle ending on a beach. Again, John Woo, Tom Cruise isn't Asian, last time I checked. With Chow Yun Fat or with Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, those guys, at least you didn't try to make them Asian. They didn't have as much slow-mo as this movie. Excuse me. Plus, that was a better movie because it was R rated. This is PG-13, so you barely see any blood in this movie compared to a lot of the sequels. Fallout is more of a closer to an R. There's an F bomb and it's way more violent than this. And I know Josh likes this movie. That's fine, but I just think the film is dull. It bored me to death. And the fact that it's part of the Mission Impossible franchise, it could have easily been forgotten. You can skip right to 3 and you will not be missing a thing. This movie was never mentioned again. Tandy Newton was never mentioned again in 3, or Doug Ray Scott, or Brendan Gleeson, or Anthony Hopkins. None of these people come back. They just vanish from a snap of Thanos' fingers. The snap, and you never heard about them again. At least 3 carries over to 4, 5, and 6. With Michelle Monaghan shows up in 4 in a cameo, and she shows up in 6 with Wes Bentley. But again, those movies have better pacing, more crazy action. It was well, the movies are longer, but still, with 3, I didn't feel like it was 3 hours. 3 was how long? And like I said, that's the only J.J. Abrams sequel that he did that he didn't fuck up. Every other one he's done something with it that I didn't care for. 3 is 2 hours and 6 minutes. It still feels shorter. This is 2 hours and 4 minutes. I felt every minute. By the 10-minute mark, I'm like, okay, a lot of boring talking, people, girls dancing. Again, this is Mission Impossible, not James Bond. I don't care which Bond you're trying to rip off. Don't try to be something that you're not. That's why every sequel after this was like, nope, we're gonna make it a Mission Impossible movie, not a freaking a James Bond knockoff. Jacquez had the same issue, and I'm like, I don't blame you, dude. You got to have better ideas than like let's just rip off James Bond. And the movie's not the worst thing ever made. It's not even one of the worst sequels I've ever seen. It's just a disappointing sequel. You know what's worse than a movie that I don't like a sequel that you waited years for that disappoints you. While I didn't love Wonder Woman 84, it's still a better movie than this. I would still watch it again, just skip like half of the middle of the movie and just get to the good stuff. And like I said, Gal's a much better lead than freaking Tandy Newton. She's not boring and she has a better accent and it's nice to look at. And also, she doesn't freaking do Razzie performances. And she had a scene with in Night and Day. She had a better scene with those few seconds with Tom Cruise than freaking Tandy Newton did for the entire movie. They even kiss at the end, like they're gonna go get married or something. She never appears again. The third movie is like she never existed, which I hope they do the same thing with 7 and 8. I don't want to see Tandy Newton come back. Vanessa Kirby, I hope they kill her off. I don't care about her. I know Josh has a boner for her. I get it. Okay, foreign chick, white, blonde. I get it, but it's not for me. My girls are like Maggie Q in the third one, or Michelle Monaghan, who's beautiful in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and I love Rebecca Ferguson. As much as she's foreign, she's still a better actress. She keeps me invested. Yellow dress, shoes please. That's more of a character than this. What does Tandy Newton say in this movie that's memorable? Let's read the quotes quickly before I end this. I want to make this video long because my videos have been too short lately. Um, I just don't understand. It's dull. Action movies have to have a better pacing. Like I said, the Bourne movies also have some kind of that problem, especially Jason Bourne. The pacing was just off. Also, there was that stupid music, the yeah, that the nostalgia critic hated that. Doug Walker hates that because it was in Avatar and in District 9. I hate that too. When they have to have this freaking Middle Eastern music in a freaking movie. They did it in the 2003 Hulk movie. Here's a quote. Hunt, Mr. Hunt, this isn't mission difficult. It's mission impossible. Again, they're trying to be meta and it doesn't work. Luther Stickle, shit, yes, it is. Ethan Hunt. Sean Ambrose, that was the hardest part of having to portray you grinning like an idiot for 15 minutes. No, I don't remember that either. Or how about this one, Billy Bard? You okay, mate? That punk put a hole in my Versace. That's your dialogue? This would be good in a DC movie, much less in a freaking Mission Impossible movie. See, I told you, the movie's disappointing. It's one of the weakest entries. It's the weakest entry in the franchise. Nothing will ever beat this. And you just have a freaking lead ego. The lead's ego was a mountain high, and your lead girl sucks, and the movie's too freaking long. And it's just boring. And if you had better pacing, I would have forgiven a lot of this film's faults. But it can't be denied. The movie, it sucks compared to the first one. And at least the sequels, the three and onward, made sure that this would never happen again. Because even when there's a lack of action, at least in the other sequels, it's intricate. Christopher McQuarrie knows how to direct and write, and he knows how to keep better pacing. Watch the first Jack Reacher or Rogue Nation or even Fallout. They're not as badly paced as this, or they have some humor. Benji wasn't even in this movie. Simon Pegg didn't come until the third movie. Again, better things came for this franchise after 2 because 2 was just really, really boring. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Mission Impossible 2. Now I don't have to ever talk about it again. Hopefully. But anyway, I think the movie it's flawed. 3 is way better. I wasn't bored. I got it on Blu-ray last year. My friend gave it to me and I can still watch it. This one is just hard to get through. But anyways, it has not aged well, even 20 years later. But anyway, Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.